Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. Long time no see. In today's video, I'm gonna show you how to paint objects in watercolor style. We're gonna paint a vintage style phonograph as an example. I found this reference photo online. I will link it in the description box. Alright, without further ado, let's get into it. For the canvas setup, it's pretty much the same as the previous videos. I set a square canvas 2000 by 2000 pixels and inserted the watercolor paper texture. You can basically use any watercolor paper texture, but I will link the one I used down below. Alright, let's start with a quick sketch. Any sketch brush will do, but I'm using the 6B pencil. For this phonograph, we're just sketching the top part, the speaker, which kinda looks like a morning glory flower. Once the sketch is done, we'll move on to color. I want the speaker part to pop with a nice red color, so let's add a new layer. Pick a red shade and grab the Watercolor-basic brush. I will also add a link to the brush in the description. Carefully paint over the entire speaker area. Don't stress if the color overlaps a bit. That's very easy to fix. To clean it up, we'll make a selection. Tap the selection tool, choose Automatic, and tap on the empty area around the speaker in this layer. Then invert the selection so only the flower-shaped speaker area is selected. Now select the smudge tool with a wet sponge brush to smooth out any extra watermarks from the watercolor brush. Adjust the brush size if needed. I like to tap along some of the edges too, since it's in real watercolor paintings, it's nearly impossible to keep all the edges perfectly clean. And just like that, our base color layer for the speaker is complete. Now let's bring this speaker to life by adding highlights and shadows. Look closely at the reference photo. Some parts of the speaker catch the light so they appear brighter, while the center is tucked inside and it looks a bit darker. Let's add highlights first and then tackle the shadows. Add another layer for the highlights. I'm adding white color blocks for the highlights. Then use the similar method to smooth out the color blocks. Keep the petal edges defined. This will help maintain the shape and add depth to the highlights. Now let's add the shadows. On the new layer, use a darker red shade to fill in the shadowed areas. Then gently smooth out the edges to blend seamlessly while keeping the depth intact. Pay special attention to the bottom edges where the speaker curves. Keeping these edges clean will emphasize the shape and give it that realistic dimensional look. I noticed that one of the petals looks a bit off, so let's quickly adjust it using the liquify tool to nudge it back into shape. Now that the flower part is done, we can go ahead and delete the sketch layer. We don't need it anymore. Next, let's add the stem of the speaker. Use a pinkish color or any color fits your vision to paint this band-aid stick kind of thing. Then use the same approach to smooth out the watermarks in here. Once it's done, let's add some details. The top part of it is a stem inserting into the tube, which is the bottom part. We need to make the top part darker and slimmer. My approach is to paint over the top with a darker color to adjust the shape slightly. Then I will emphasize the bottom area with an even darker shade for added depth. Once that's done, smooth out the edges, clean up the top border, and slim down the top part using the eraser. Use the liquify tool to adjust the shape if needed. Next, combine the 3 layers for the flower part to keep things organized. Now the stem looks a bit too long, so let's shorten it. Select the stem, grab the selection tool, and adjust its height to make it just right. Next, paint the box on a new layer. I kept it super loose, just blocking in the shape, and then use the eraser to refine the edges and outline the box. In the reference photo, the box is packed with details. Let's simplify it and focus on just capturing the essence. The process is the same. Paint the background color, add highlights and shadows. Here, I'm gonna add the shadows first. Choose a darker color to add the shadows. Then use a smudge tool to blend them smoothly. I went over the shadows in 2 rounds to build up depth and dimension. Then let's add the metal thing in the front with a lighter color. Then add the screen with a darker brownish color and add the knobs underneath. It comes to the hard part, which is the metal flower decoration on the left side of the box. I want to let you know that don't feel scared when you see something that is really complex or has tons of details. Just trust the process and we can tackle it. What's the process again? Paint the background color, add highlights and shadows, right? Let's start by painting a simple blob for the background and then add shadows. Don't stress about figuring out which shadow falls under each petal or all that tiny details. Just focus on the darkest area and block in those shapes as shadows. Once that's done, use white to add highlights using the same approach. You can go over it with a few more rounds of shadows or highlights if needed. Now it's looking good to me. To finish, I will soften the left edge so it blends smoothly into the box. Let's adjust the color of the metal flower to better match and complement the box. Next, using the same approach to paint the plate on top of the box. Then you can see it kind of sees through. You can see the box edge from it. To solve that problem, let's add a white background of this plate. So select the plate layer if you have multiple ones. Combine them before the next step. Use the automatic selection tool, tap on the empty space, then inverted it. Add a new layer underneath the plate layer, drop a white color to the selection. Combine the original plate layer and this background layer. Adjust the color to make it darker. The rest of the work is very simple. Add a knob for the stem, and the arm and the needle for the player. The final touch is adding some highlights to bring everything together. Add subtle highlights to the stem, the edges of the flower petals, and around the edges of the box for that extra pop and dimension. I feel like I need to add some lines between petals to pop them up more. And there you have it. Our phonograph painting is complete. We sketched, painted, and brought it to life with highlights and shadows and all those little details. You can take this approach to paint any objects. These will be perfect for stickers or little decorations for cards. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell if you don't want to miss any future videos. Thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next one. Bye!